Hello, my name is Chloe Noller, and I'm on the Beyond the Bowl podcast at Career Services with Daniel Higbie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Well, just to get us started, can you tell us your story, who you are, how you got to Hillsdale, what your story is, and what you do now?
So I came to Hillsdale from Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's my hometown, and graduated in 1998 and in classical rhetoric and persuasive communication. And for the last 25 years, I've been an entrepreneur. And now I have a son here, which is exciting.
Tell us about your Hillsdale experience. So you majored in rhetoric. How was that for you? Did you think that set you up well for your career?
So I absolutely loved the education that I got here. I was at the point in my life where I wasn't as practical as I am now. And so I wasn't as focused more on practicality. I was focused on understanding the deeper things of life and thinking well and, reasoning well and being able to speak well. My degree was incredibly useful. I've used it every single day ever since. However, from a hiring standpoint, very few people knew what to do with me. And so I ended up going and getting my master's in international relations and global macroeconomics, and then starting my business. So I probably was the perfect entrepreneur. I probably didn't fit quite anywhere, and so I needed to start my own.
What were you involved with on campus?
Oh gosh, let's see. I don't know how much I was involved with. I kind of did my own thing. I don't know. I was a lot less mature than I am now. So, no, we just had a lot of fun. I think I hung out a lot with artists, with some of the artists. I loved going to the Tower Players productions. Probably training a lot in running and strength training. So I still was doing that, even though I didn't do any organized sports.
Can you tell us what you do now?
So I've been an entrepreneur for probably about 25 years. We started a family business, my mother and I. She loved the tradition of British afternoon tea, but she also saw that there was a real deeper need in our society, that people were becoming, as technology grows, people are increasingly kind of minimized and treated as numbers. And the more conveniences and technology that we had, the more we seem to struggle with authentic connecting, right? And so we created a 4-star fine dining British Tearoom. But the goal of it's really an experience that happens to include food and tea. But the whole point is to give people an experience that they can connect in a deeper way. And people love it. So now we have 90 employees and 5 different lines of revenue, and the goal is to eventually have more of them. And we also view our business as an undercover leadership academy. We hire a lot of young people, and so we try to train them in a fantastic, godly work ethic. So there's, it's not just to act as a catalyst for change in our society, right? Toward a return to grace, civility, beauty, gentility, and excellence. That's our purpose statement. But it's also to raise up a whole new group of young people that have an incredible godly work ethic that can go out and change the world.
I wanted to ask, on your LinkedIn, you said you have 20 years in redemptive entrepreneuring. Is that what you mean by that, trying to train up the next generation of godly entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So the way that I've always learned it is there are 3 types of business. The first and the lowest way of doing business is exploitative, right? It's where you're in it for yourself. It's this idea of I win and someone else has to lose, right? And, take advantage of people, that's all the bad businesses that we know, right? So that's one way. The second way is ethical business. And that is what most people try to do, and that's where most of us live most of the time, where you try to focus on win-win situations. In every deal you make, you create win-win situations. You do the right thing, right? But what most Christians don't realize is there is an even higher level of business. And the question that we always ask is, well, did Jesus create win-win situations? Well, did he? No, he didn't. He lost it all.
Yeah.
He gave it all. He sacrificed everything. And so when you look at that, redemptive entrepreneuring is creating businesses where the focus is on creative restoration through sacrifice. So that gets scary to a lot of people. Now, it may not mean, exactly what you think. So you have to create an excellent product. You have to create an excellent service. You have to solve a need that's in society, right? And you want to create win-win situations, right? You want to be ethical. But there may be times when you have the opportunity to sacrifice personally, and in doing so, the whole society wins. So the idea is create a restoration through sacrifice, and I sacrifice, we win. I'll give you an example. We live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? Which I love. I love my state more than any other state, but it's the worst economy in the United States.
Wow.
It's 50 out of 50. It's 50 out of 50 in education. It's 50 out of 50 in economics, right? It's got a lot of brokenness.
Yeah.
Right? But, where did Jesus go? He went to the broken. And so they need it more than any. So by keeping my business in New Mexico, for example, if I changed my headquarters to Texas, which is a much better economy, just next door, right? Next state over, could I make a lot more? Oh, yeah. But then I wouldn't be supporting my hometown. Do I eventually want to, grow outside of New Mexico? Yes. But I still want to bring any profit back into New Mexico because I want New Mexico to thrive. I want New Mexico to grow. But to do that, it takes a sacrifice. If you pursue the absolute best return for me and my own all the time, you can't stay loyal, right? Why would you sacrifice anything?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one example of redemptive entrepreneuring. You're trying to create businesses that redeem the culture, that lift the culture, that restore things in the culture. And a lot of times that means you're not going to where things are hot, right? You go to the broken places. And it takes a different person to do that.
How did you create such a successful business in that economy? What were some steps you had to take?
Honestly, I think it's because the Lord just redeemed all our mistakes. We truly were seeking him the whole way, but in the beginning we had no idea what we were doing. Like most people, right? If you've never done it before,
Absolutely.
You don't know what you're doing, and so you just have to learn on the job. But it was even more difficult in a state that has less disposable income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know what tea is. And so we kind of had to train people to want our product, which takes time. So that took time. It took time to grow our business to the point where it was excellent. It takes time and effort, but it was worth it. After 25 years, yeah. Goes fast. It goes very fast. We also sought wise counsel. A big part of things that changed it for us is we joined a group. Now there's a number of different groups out there, but back then it was one of the only groups you could join. It was called Fellowship of Companies for Christ International. And it was a weekly meeting of other business owners who were walking in the same shoes and trying to understand how to run your business, according to biblical principles. And that's a whole different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so that was a great community. And through that, we got to know a lot of business people and got wise counsel. And that also helped. and just sticking with it and never giving up. Because as soon as you, kind of like marriage, as soon as you allow for the possibility of giving up, you will. Because it just, just gets hard, like anything in life. Anything good.
So
right?
true. You mentioned you got your master's in international relations. And did you say economics?
So I focused on both national security and global macroeconomics.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is kind of ironic that I'm not doing that now. But my wife is international. So I always joke that it was preparing me for that. But no, that was at the Maxwell School in Syracuse.
Okay.
And it was excellent. The goal from the very beginning was to live and work for both of us internationally. My wife's from Ukraine. And we wanted to live in Europe and be expats and have cool jobs in London and the Lord said no. Sometimes life takes directions that you definitely didn't expect, but it's still good. So good thing he's still he knows the whole plan.
What would you say for people looking to get into business? What's your advice and guidance for young people who want to start their own businesses, who are looking in that direction? You mentioned this beautiful concept of redemptive entrepreneurship. So what advice would you give to people?
What I love about a lot of the younger generations these days is they're deeply hungry for deeper meaning. And so I would definitely encourage them to understand that concept. There's a wonderful group called Praxis Labs, and you can type in any search bar, Praxis Redemptive Entrepreneuring, and you'll find it. And it's an incredible model. But for as long as my, the students that I didn't talk to all day today are listening, what I encourage so many people to do is, if they have a business idea, is fire bullets, not cannonballs. So many people, the first mistake so many entrepreneurs make is they get excited about an idea. Oh, I've got this great idea. It's fantastic. And then they decide, oh, I'm going to invest $10,000 in this and $20,000 in this. And they construct this giant cannonball, which they then launch, and they miss the target and they fail. What you want to do is you want to do small, inexpensive experiments that prove whatever business you want to start, right? So if you want to start a clothing business, right? We'll do some small experiments where you try to sell 10 or 20 or 100 to people and then try to sell 10 or 20 or 100 to people that you don't know but are in the same community. And you just gradually do these small, inexpensive experiments, like a bullet, right? A bullet is inexpensive, right? And you can fire many of them. And with each one, you will learn and you will prove your concept. So that's one of the things that I try to teach. And then the biggest thing so many people do is they have the wrong purpose for business. If you ask, even in my master's, if you ask people, what's the purpose of business? They'll say profit, right? And it's totally wrong. In fact, I can tell a lot about someone very, very quickly by the answer to that question. So in reality, the purpose of any business is to solve a problem or fulfill a need that people have that is not already being, taken care of. And to the extent that you solve that problem or fulfill that need excellently, you'll be able to, pay for all the inputs, pay your people, pay yourself, and then you might, if you do a good enough job, have something left over. And that's called profit, right? So profit is the reward for accomplishing your purpose. Profit is never the purpose itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's really easy to get those two mixed. Money is a tool. You need to be profitable because if you don't have a profitable business, it means you don't have an excellent business. And the only way that you're going to earn the right to speak about your real boss, right, the Lord who owns it all, is if you are excellent. So you have to have profit, but it's not the point. It's not the whole purpose. That's a few things that I would tell to anybody who's interested in starting a company or entrepreneuring.
Specifically for Hillsdale students, you had your education here, you know what it's like. Would there be things that you'd recommend on a practical level, either the degrees that they should be getting or clubs to be involved in? Or would you say it's more about just experiencing and growing in excellence, broadening your horizons? Or are there useful things to be doing to prepare yourself for entrepreneurship?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that does come to mind that was a mistake that I made in Hillsdale. take every internship opportunity you possibly can. They are gold. I was really foolish in that, you have this loan and you're kind of stressing, about the loan, and you're like, I need to make money during the summer. And so what I tried to do is instead of taking that valuable, because you only have 3 summers during college. Once you do not have a summer after you graduate. A lot of people don't realize that. And if you can get as much experience as possible, it's hugely impactful, and you'll make up for it afterwards with that experience. So that would probably be the first thing. The biggest thing, especially when you have many smart, capable people, you can drown in possibility. That's probably one that most people don't talk about, where you have too many opportunities and you can't do everything. You cannot. You can only do a few things very well. And as someone who, like, I was the epitome of master of none, or what do you call it?
Oh, a jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades,
yes.
Master of none, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like the epitome of that. And that's great. But what happens, what you learn later, if you're a jack of all trades, master of none, then sometimes you don't get respected as a master of anything. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's because most people realize you can't do everything super well. Maybe my lesson, as I think back, if I would counsel my younger self, is, based on your capability, pick 2 or 3 things that you're going to focus on and rock those. Be the best, because you'll have the most opportunities. You'll get the most, not only will you have the most opportunities, but you'll get the most reaction and response to that. You'll probably get better scholarships. You will have more opportunities going forward than if you do a lot of things pretty well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's that would probably be the one, because there's, when you have people that are just so capable, and Hillsdale, I think now is an even higher level school than when I went, probably. And so everyone who's coming here is super capable. But the problem with that is that means you can do too many things.
Yeah.
And then you just divide your time between too many things instead of focusing on a few and just excelling.
That's all the time we have today, Mr. Higbie. But
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I've been Chloe Noller on the Beyond the Bubble podcast with Career Services. Thanks so much for listening.